Sis, is your dream job starting to feel like a nightmare? We're going to talk about it today. So, again, if your dream job starts looking like a nightmare, we're going to talk about what does that look like and what to do if you're in that situation. I think many of us have been in jobs where it started off really good and then it turns really, really, really bad. You wake up every day like you're in a nightmare. So we're going to be talking about that today with my guest. I just want to just be very mindful and just be transparent and vulnerable that I've received some feedback that I'm interrupting my guests. So I will be very mindful of not sharing my story as much as my guests are sharing their story. And then my other videos is more of me talking about my story and healing from a toxic job. So again, I hear you, sis. I will limit the amount of interruptions that I do. One of the other women who commented said, it seems like you're really excited about what your guests are sharing. And that's exactly right. So I get excited about what my guests are sharing. And it's almost like they're my friends and we're like talking and stuff like that. But I don't want to make the conversation feel jarring or uncomfortable or anything like that. Okay. So if you don't know me already, I'm Dr. Kamani. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist of over 20 years. I'm also a toxic job survivor and a toxic job liberator for Black women. I'm so excited to let you know that tomorrow, tickets go on sale for the Job Liberation Virtual Summit for Black women. Marissa Price and I are the co-hosts of that, and we'll be sharing more about, we're going to come on live to do like a Q&A tomorrow about the virtual summit. As you see it going across the screen is the waiting list for that. So when tickets drop tomorrow, you'll be notified and you get your ticket. Okay. So without further ado, I want to have my guest introduce herself. So welcome, Mercedes.
Thank you, Dr. Kamani. I'm so excited for this and really, thankful to be in front of your audience and the lovely ladies that I've seen engaged so far. My name is Mercedes Swan. I go online by the Career Love Coach. And my background and experiences in human resources and diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so that journey and expertise is kind of what has created who I am and how I coach online today. With just understanding the different, not just the experiences that I've had, but, the dynamics of understanding human resources, systems, processes, procedures, as well as kind of turning that around and kind of undoing or, unpacking those from a diversity, equity, and inclusion lens. So that is my whole goal. My whole thing in this life is to help and support Black women being in their Black women bliss era, falling in love with their careers and their businesses. So that is me. That is what I get out here to do. So I'm excited to connect. It's super aligned.
First of all, you're like radiating joy right now. It's so funny. I chose to wear yellow today and I feel like you're radiating joy. And I'm assuming that part of that is because you've left the toxic job. Okay.
Absolutely. We're gone.
That's like a preview, right? Yeah. Like once you leave, it's so much better. And the other thing that I really appreciate about what you shared is you said bliss for Black women and bliss. So I want to make sure we touch upon that before we finish today. Okay. So can you share with the audience, what was the job you had? How was it like a dream job? And then what led to it becoming like a nightmare?
Yeah, well, I think I'm probably not alone in this where you're like, you know what? It's a cycle, at least for me. It was a cycle for me, right? Of like, oh, I'm joining. I'm really excited about this opportunity. It's a great place. And, and then you kind of see the lulls of like, oh, well, it's actually not that great. And then you start the cycle over again. We're like, okay, new job, starting over, different thing. And then you find yourself back in that process. And I know that's absolutely not a unique experience to me. But throughout my career, it's been really a big challenge because as a human resources professional, and then even more so in diversity, equity, inclusion, I felt like in those spaces, I wasn't just like fighting for myself. I was fighting for other employees, for equitable processes, to have leaders be accountable, do what they say they're going to do, create a safe environment. And so I would say I've definitely been in those cycles with you. There's different pieces and things that I've experienced in each of those places. But I would say for my first one, I know people give me a hard time when I say this. Like I was truly at a family-oriented organization.
Oh,
and people,
okay.
I know.
I'm a restrained comment. Got it. Okay.
I know. People are like, girl, what?
Uh-huh.
But I really was, and it was very flexible. I really enjoyed it. And there was just, when you say family oriented, what you're supposed to think, that is very much what it was, right? And I felt like I really connected. And given that, still in that space, being like the only Black woman in that space. So you got to think about, like, how did that happen, girl? What? Like, no, it's like, when I tell you that there really are opportunities out there for us to be in career love, there are. But over time, that organization shifted and changed because they had changes in leadership. That meant that some of those truly family oriented values kind of went out the window for profit. And I found myself trying to keep, the humanity and those values in place. And also in some ways, like, mourning what used to be, right? What used to be my safe, happy place at work was no longer that. And so once I know we got lots to talk about, but, going through that cycle and saying, you know what, okay, I really have to let this go. It's not this anymore. I have to find something that allows me to, show up, be myself, not cry in my office anymore, not be fighting and yelling at our leaders in the middle of the day about what they're doing with employee policies and things like that, and really just move forward. And I think, as I again went into a place where I was in a very healthy environment, really adored and loved my supervisor, went for a promotion that I was very, very excited about, and found that I was in a situation with a toxic supervisor who really didn't want to see me grow, wanted to see me shrink. I would say over time, just really beaten down. And that was actually really the hardest opportunity, where I had mental health challenges and everything like that. So it is a cycle. And I think those are some of the flags that I've seen, to be succinct. I'm not succinct though, but yeah, those are some of the things I noticed at first. So
yeah. You shared so many rich comments that I wanted to follow up with some follow-up questions.
Yeah, do it.
So let's talk about what were some of the signs. So it started off good, right? So it seemed like a very cohesive, supportive work environment. Then there was a change of leadership. Was that like the start of the
Yeah. Yeah, I think, as HR professionals, a lot of times you have a little bit more insight into what's going on behind the door, curtain, whatever you want to call it. And so I think the biggest sign for me is I started seeing leaders making decisions that were different than the values that we previously had, right? So when I talk about that family oriented goal, it was like, okay, I'm going to make policies that allow people to spend time with their family, that give them the needed flexibility to leave. Nobody in that organization hit a time card. Okay. Right. It was truly that flexible, open, people first kind of energy. Right. And so as those shifts in leadership began to change, then I was seeing like, oh, okay, well, we got to change this process because that's too much PTO, or that's too much pay, or that's too much freedom. And it's a shift that like is embedded in control, really, because then they start to think about profits, right? Because when you think about profits, you got to start controlling some things, right? All those other values aren't as important. So yeah, those are absolutely some of the ones from my first experience.
So just the work culture, which was a major shift. And then you were saying that at a certain point, you had to come to the recognition that the dream was becoming a nightmare. Can you talk about what that process was like for you?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's hard because it's like I said, in human resources, a lot of that is truly like, it is a me thing, but a lot of that is also the employees thing. And so I think the nightmare became when I felt like I was cleaning up after grown men, to be honest, right? In the workplace, right? Like, not only am I dealing with the toxic leadership in this setting, like you yelling at me, you asking me to do things that aren't, according to HR policy and procedure, but then also I'm having to interact with employees that have the same complaints, or, address, somebody not being let's just say inclusive leader, right? Being a toxic leader, and how they're interacting and engaging with employees, and having to be the one that's doing those interviews and going back to leaders and saying, hey, here's all of the things that we need to shift, right? And it's hard because an inclusive culture has to come from the top, right? And so if you're pushing upwards, you're kind of that person honestly getting squeezed in the middle of it. And so that then coming from the top just started to getting embedded into how everybody worked with each other, right? It was low trust. People didn't want to connect and engage with each other because they were afraid about who was going to say what, or who was going to get mad at who, versus doing what's right for employees. So that became a true nightmare of
Right.
interacting with employees. And then for me, right, I'm dealing with what the employees are doing and trying to do my job, and in many ways try and protect them, right? And I know we have so many stereotypes of HR people not standing on business, not doing what they're supposed to for employees. That wasn't me. So I was out here stressing out, crying in my office in between arguments at work.
Oh my God.
So it was
So
rough.
let me
Yeah.
just summarize, Mercedes. So sounds like you were put in a very difficult, impossible situation. So there was a change in the organizational structure, which contributed to people in the workplace not feeling safe, not feeling comfortable. And you were supposed to be kind of carrying out and kind of going along with the game, right? But then they were disrespecting you too. So on
Yeah.
the one hand, you were supposed to be the one to kind of carry out, but then you were being disrespected. And can you talk a little bit about, because you mentioned about crying in your office. I want to talk a little bit more about that. And I also wonder about, because I hear this a lot about Black women masking in the workplace. So
Yeah.
feeling that, you have to present a certain way because you don't want people to know how you're feeling or how you're impacted. Tell us about the masking that you experienced.
Wow, that's a lot. I mean, even in that, I said that was much earlier on in my, my work experience. But because, like I said, I was the only Black woman in that organization, in that corporate office, and so often, and then also on top of that, I came in with honestly a lot of I don't know if I want to call it clout, right? So when I was hired, right, I came in with this, Black woman, I know we talk about pet the threat, right, all the time, but I came as a Black woman who had, a master's degree, who had, a high level of work experience and just a lot of engagement. And so I came in as somebody who, the first engagement that I had with the CEO was him asking me because he saw that I was carrying around my HR textbook, right? And so I think it's that dynamic of always like being perfect, right? Being the Black excellence in everything that creates these environments where we do have to mask, right? And so in that case, because I was fighting so hard to be like, we can't do this, like it comes with, especially when you're working with leaders, it comes with a lot of expertise and a confidence that you have to carry yourself with to actually see those things happen, right? So if I'm advocating that we have to do this different or we have to change things in human resources practices, but I'm not confident or I'm not firm in my expertise and my skills, that means that I'm unlikely to have these changes be made. And there were absolutely times that I had to kind of throw around my, my master's degree, my certification and, about the things that I truly had learned. And even though that environment was really challenging, I truly had a great supervisor who supported me through that, even though we had this greater dynamic. And so I say all of that to say, yeah, I couldn't be the person that kind of let my guard down in that meeting because I knew that wasn't just even a personal thing. It meant so much about employee benefits and employee pay and what people were going to allow and not allow in a corporate setting or, and
You're
things
like
like
the
that.
protector of other people who are not in the room.
Exactly. Yes. And that's
Yeah,
very much that was how I felt and that was reality. Yeah.
yeah. And then they attacked you.
Yeah, exactly. And, this is early on. So, I want to make space for all of your questions. But at the time, so right now, I'm about 3 years into an adult ADHD diagnosis. So now I'm aware that I was also masking ADHD in addition to my feelings that I had. I didn't realize that until later on. But in that place, I was masking a lot of the, inattention or some of the rejection sensitivity that I understand now. And that ultimately really led me to a high level of burnout because I was trying to mask my ADHD with perfectionism.
Exhausting. Exhausting.
Exhausting.
Right. And you really bring up something that I really need to talk more about, and probably have some more lives about in terms of neurodivergence and how does that show up in the workplace and the masking with neurodivergence. So you talked about, just the exhaustion. So you come in, you have the credentials, and you have to kind of show, what you're working with or whatever. So you made reference to pets of threat too. So did you experience pets of threat and in what ways?
I think in that, I wouldn't say that was the most textbook case of like pet to threat, right? Where it's like, oh, we're hiring you because you're very talented, but now it's a threat because, you're telling us what to do or you're outshining us or things like that. Because I think the way that I was treated was more of a product of the shifts and the changes in the culture and that piece. But I have absolutely had that same experience in other places. But I do think that it was this idea of, depending on how I positioned that, I do think that there were some pet to threat scenarios that I had, like were in a more insulated standpoint. There was an individual that came from human resources before he had worked there and he was in a different role. And so it was kind of this idea of like, oh, I can just kind of like get what, do whatever I want if I just kind of get in good graces with this person being me. And then when they realized they weren't going to be able to just kind of, use the charm to do whatever they wanted in the workplace, then it became a threat, right? And so I think I was talking about that on a live the other day where I was like, yeah, and then they turned around and were trying to like share that I wasn't engaged or I didn't want to do my job or I was difficult to work with, right? That comes up every time.
I know,
And so, yeah.
like when you manipulate it, then you're the problem. Yes.
Yep, exactly. Because I can't bend to whatever. I don't bend to your will. Yeah, now we have issues. So
Right.
absolutely, it happens all the time.
Yes. And can you share with us about the crying in the office?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times for me, it was dealing with the frustration of not being heard or understood because we talk a lot about the HR being the villain, right? HR is not looking out for you. HR doesn't care about you. In this sense, I went out of my way a lot of times for employees to really try and help them with whatever it is, right? Like there would be employees that they were having mental health crises. I would go out of my way to make sure that they got the support that they needed. I had employees that they were terminated that I would help them with their resume to find something different. There were a lot of reasons, and that's based on my values of me going above and beyond for people. And I know that's not typical. And so the painful thing for me would be when I know that I'm advocating for you in another room and you're in my office yelling at me and telling me that you don't trust me and that I'm doing this to your PTO and you're the problem in the organization and I can't believe you sent out this email with one typo in it because I don't know how to log into the HR system, So those were the things that would really get me. It was almost like the last straw that broke the camel's back. I was like, And those were the things that would really be painful because it wasn't a real reflection of me. And those would be the things that were kind of like, I can deal with the leaders. I can deal with the bureaucracy. It's the personal attacks on like me and my values that really get to me. So that was the crying in the office. I leave a meeting, get off the phone, hang up, ball, and head to lunch. And hopefully by the time I stress ate, right, my Zaxby's, okay, the pizza, the Chinese buffet that I love to go down to the street, coming back and hopefully holding it together to get through the rest of the day.
Medication. You were trying to medicate yourself, like to all the stress.
Exactly.
Man. So you mentioned also that there was a shift also when your supervisor changed and you had a toxic supervisor. So what did that look like? And how did that impact you to have a toxic supervisor?
Yeah. So that was my first time having a toxic supervisor. This is a different role, different organization. And so that had been from a shift in moving into management, right? And so the problem with that of moving into this new role and this new skill set, even though there were a lot of ways that I was informally managing others or had managed interns, is that you don't really know if it's you or not, at least for a good part. And so in that transition, I actually had a supervisor that really wasn't looking out for, my best interests. There were a lot of different standards that I had that, I didn't know at the time. And if I look back at it, there was actually no standard that could be met. Like it's the moving standard that, okay, well, let's do it this way. It's like, okay, I did it this way. No, let's do it this way. Let's do it this, and like over time that causes you to think, oh, I'm not good at my job. Maybe I'm not cut out for management. I'm not doing all of these things right. And also because I'm chasing the standard, now I'm not actually showing up for my team the right way. like I'm not leading them the way that they need because I'm adhering to a form of leadership and management that is not effective for anyone, including me. And so over time, I had to understand and really take a step back and say, hey, am I actually the issue in this? Like, is it my skill set that wasn't set up for management? And it was a moment where I said, actually, I'm going to try doing this my way, what I think it means to be a great leader, what I think it means to deliver excellent service and to do my job well, versus these expectations that nobody can meet, right? You can't meet expectations on a performance review if the standards are always changing. And so that's what I had to really begin to realize about what was happening and shift how I was acting and behaving to just be comfortable in myself versus the leader who I think, unfortunately in this space, I think they, were kind of threatened by the work that I did and my experience. And I say that because everything was done by perfection, right? I have a standard of perfection for myself. So it's hard to compete with that.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on, too, what I noticed was that as you were in this experience with this toxic supervisor, it seems like you were reality testing for yourself. Like, like what's going on here? And you were kind of able to evaluate some things and you kind of arrived to, I think this person is threatened by me. How did you come to that determination? I think many Black women are in toxic workplaces and you get the sense that a person is threatened by you or intimidated by you. How were you able to pinpoint that this is what it is?
I actually, if I'm being honest here, I don't actually think that I fully consider that until actually after I left. Like it is hard.
Okay. It is.
What I did recognize, and I'm a very self-aware person. I'm always thinking about why am I behaving and why am I doing this, right? And I think really what I was able to identify in that point was that there was actually nothing that I could do to meet any standard, right? So that was enough for me to know that I could stop trying to adhere to the standard. It's literally it's impossible. And it was, the breaking point was because I could no longer do it because I was masking the ADHD. And that led to me to be in that cycle, which happens with undiagnosed people with ADHD. The burnout happens. Then you get the anxiety and depression, or maybe one, whatever, the connection between those two.
Yeah.
So I sought out, therapy, and then I ended up going to a psychiatrist for additional support around that. But that was really my breaking point. I could not do it. And I had to sit there. I really had to think about it. It's like, okay, I can't exist like this. What is truly going on? And that's when I led me to really reflect on saying like, hey, you're doing all of this. There's only one person that's not happy with this. Let's start thinking about it really. And that's, between that, going to therapy, my diagnosis to understand my pattern of behavior of perfectionism to fix the issues at hand. That's how I got to where I was.
That's a ringing endorsement of therapy.
Yes.
Therapy, because
it is.
You're an objective person to talk to. You're able to kind of walk through what's going on. And what I really appreciate, not only as a therapist, but a therapist with a therapist, is that a therapist can help you in so many different ways to say, wait a minute, what's going on? Why are you feeling this way? Let's identify what's the source of it. Because it sounds like you were like trying to jump all through all these hoops. You were trying to make sure everything was right. You're like the perfectionist behavior, like all these things you're trying to do, but nothing was making it better. So you made reference to this, and Mercedes, I'm hoping that you could talk a little, or if you feel comfortable, to talk a little bit more about being in this work environment. How did it impact you physically, psychologically, even spiritually?
Yeah, I'm really happy to do that. I think the heartbreak, and I'm totally fine. I might get a little, but I'm okay because I talk about it a lot. But I do get a little emotional. But I think for me, I've always it didn't matter what it was. Like even from high school, I was like, oh my gosh, I love psychology, which is why I was like open to thinking about a lot of the things and being open to an ADHD diagnosis already because I was a psychology major. And so I went through the stage of always choosing like my passion in life, right? So People are like, oh, you can't do psychology as a degree, girl. What job are you going to get? I was like, I don't know. I love psychology. I'll figure it out.
Okay.
And so I did a lab and I was like, oh, I don't like research. We're going to have to figure something else out about that. And then I went and I was like, oh my gosh, applied psychology in the workplace is human resources. I mean, with this little bit of stretch, right? And so I was like, let me do that. And I was ultimately thinking I was going to do industrial organizational psychology, but I fell in love with HR and I stayed. I'm
Okay.
saying that as a background to say I've always just listened to whatever I was passionate about and
Mhm.
like pursued that. And I blinders, didn't care what else. I'm gonna go for that. I'm gonna go for the Black woman bliss. Okay.
Okay.
And so I say that because the big trigger is that I didn't feel any passion. I didn't know, like it didn't guide me. I wasn't lit up by anything.
Mm.
Everything, and I know we all have like different experiences with depression and anxiety. I just wasn't excited anymore. You can
Uh,
tell by the energy that might be
that's
a
a
little bit.
telltale sign with depression is that there's a change to your baseline functioning and things that you used to find exciting, interesting, whatever, it kind of goes
Gone,
away. Yeah.
all gone.
Wow.
And I already had, I think, some like generalized anxiety that I managed just in the day to day. But that was a key sign where I had my coaching business. I didn't craft. I didn't go do activities. Disney. I used to be adult Disney. I wasn't excited about adult Disney. We also had all the COVID stuff. Like,
Yeah.
really, things were off. And so when I say that, like, I didn't really have like what we typically see on TV as like the depression of people crying and like, it's a dramatic thing. My emotions just shut off and I was going through the motions and I didn't find joy in anything.
Mm.
And that was so weird because I loved recruitment. I loved diversity, equity, inclusion. I loved the work that I did. And so that was the key sign. And so what did that look like coming home? I didn't work on anything. I went in my bed. I slept. I tried to hold it together until morning. Like, and then I woke up miserable and went back to work the next day. And I told you about how I went to, I was having suspicions about having ADHD because I couldn't mask the inattention. I couldn't mask kind of like the jumping between tasks and everything like that. And I joke that TikTok diagnosed me. So I was like learning. I was like, is this not normal? Is this is not how everybody thinks? And I was like, oh, okay, I guess not. And so I went and I found it. I was very clear. I wanted a Black woman who was going to be my therapist. And she also specialized in working with people with ADHD. I found out later she had ADHD. And
Okay.
so, yeah, so I wanted to make sure I was in a safe space to explore whatever, all that was going on. And she confirmed a lot of things that I was feeling. And so then that's when I went to get to the psychiatrist and I ended up as a Lexapro girly.
Okay. Okay.
um, so,
So,
yeah.
so you talked about the benefit that social media can have too, in terms of awareness. Like, wait a minute, this is not okay. Like, what's going on with me? And I think that's part of
Mhm.
the fear, the anxiety is not knowing what's happening. Like, wait a minute, why am I not excited about Disney anymore? Why am I not doing the things I used to do? But again, anyone watching this, a telltale sign that you really need to pay attention to is any change in your baseline functioning. So if you are
Mhm.
noticing a change in how you are personally and or professionally, like the job that you used to have, you had like excitement or interest or whatever, and now it's like muted, basically. Like you really don't feel anything, and it's draining. So once you get
Mhm.
home, the exhaustion of masking and doing all those other things, once you get home, you're totally wiped out. So the thought of doing
Mhm.
anything else, you're wiped out, right? So you talked
Mhm.
about therapy was very helpful for you. You also talked about, consulting with a psychiatrist. What other things were really key for you in, I would say, helping you get to the point where you were able to pivot out of that job?
Yeah, I mean, I won't tell you it was easy. Like it was hard. I was dealing with, the the big emotion or well, the big negative emotions and the not feeling of the anything energizing. And
Mhm.
so it was really hard for me to stay focused in my job search. And so I would say that a lot of things felt like going through the motions, right? And I think for us to kind of break out of that cycle, we have to actually reconnect with self and say, hey, what is it that I really want? And it was really hard for me to say that with not having the passion to like guide me. But
Mhm.
I would say what happened is that I had launched my job search because I knew I needed to get out of there. I stayed
Okay.
for too long because I felt like I had to prove myself.
Oh,
And then when I was like, oh,
pause. Wait, pause. Can we talk about that? Please, can we
yes,
talk about that? The
yes.
proving yourself. Please talk about that.
Yeah. So, I mentioned like I was in human resources, right? I'm new to management. And so I felt like this was a skill that I had to learn. And because I
Mhm.
had all those sliding scales of like, this is the right thing, I thought I was doing it wrong. So I thought, okay, I have to prove myself before I can go apply to another
Got it.
management position or apply somewhere else. That role was where I was doing for the first time formal diversity, equity, and inclusion work. So I felt like I had to prove that I was knowledgeable enough in that space to
Got
do
it.
it somewhere else.
Mhm.
And because the requirements or the standards of what I was doing were never going to mean success. It was hard for me to feel like I was capable of doing that elsewhere. So I had to prove myself here before I could go elsewhere.
Got it.
The
Thank
reality is that I had all of those skills, and that was
you.
like the piece that I had to acknowledge in myself, which led me to be able to pivot, right? So I was
Mhm.
stuck in that like going through the motions kind of thing of saying like, okay, I'm in talent acquisition now. I guess I'm applying to another talent acquisition position. Girl,
Hmm.
no, like no. I was meant to apply to diversity, equity, inclusion, and that work like just filled me up, and I love what I do, and
Okay.
got to reconnect with the passion again. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You know, it's so interesting, Mercedes, and thank you for because that was a moment I got excited, right? And I had to try to control myself, but those moments come out, right? I get, what? Talk
Yeah.
about that, right? So I hope that
You're
wasn't
good.
offsetting for you or off-putting or anything.
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay,
The,
so
the the impulsive, right? I'm good. I'm impulsiving to everybody
you
else. So it's
understand?
okay.
Like I get it, I get it, I get it. So the part about pivoting, I think
Yeah.
many, I think just in general, Black people, we know how to pivot because we always have
Mhm.
to pivot.
Yeah.
Yet, I think when many of us get in these good jobs with the good benefits,
Mhm.
it is harder to
Mhm.
pivot because of the fears that we have of pivoting. Can you speak
Yeah.
specifically to any fears that you had in the pivot process and how did you pivot regardless of the fears or despite the fears?
Yeah. I think it's interesting because I guess I don't know, maybe it's because I'm a recruiter where I'm in HR, like nothing's really that stable. Like until recently, I feel like people are like, oh, there's a such thing as a stable job. I was like, I don't know about that. And so I didn't and I think because I was always really interested in the my purpose and my passion, I can't say that I feel like that propelled through lots of fear, right? I think that's always done that for me. But what
Mhm.
I would say is that the question that I often ask, clients or people that I'm working with or who have this question is they're like, oh, why can't it be better than it already is? If that's really what it is. Like if you're good in a good situation, you have a good paycheck, it's stable,
Mhm.
but maybe you don't like your supervisor, or maybe you don't like the environment, or maybe you haven't been promoted. Okay, but why can't it be better somewhere else? Like why is it that it has to be a
Question.
worse situation?
Why do you why do you
Let's
assume the
unpack
worst?
it. Yeah.
Yes. I like that. I like that. Okay. Be open to what could be. It's not all bad, right? The
It's not
automatic
all
thought
bad.
that it's going to be all bad. And you know what I appreciate too, Mercedes,
Yeah.
is that because you're in HR, you know on the flip side about getting new jobs and pivoting and right,
Mhm.
that it's a process that's not like you have to stay anywhere
Yes.
that's not really serving you. So how did you pivot though? How did you do it?
Yeah, so for me, I mean, I have a process that I go through, but for me it is um one of the things that I made a mistake about was that I didn't do what I tell my clients to do, what I coach my clients about. And that gets us, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
it does. And so there's this exercise. So if you're listening, you've never heard of this, there is kind of this methodology called ikigai. I don't know if you've heard of it
What's it
before.
called?
Ikigai. It's a
Ikigai.
Japanese word. It's called the reason for being. There's a book if you want to read it, but you could just do the exercise. So it asks you a couple of things. So it is what you love doing, what you can be paid for, what you're good at, and what the world needs. And your goal in this exercise is to answer all of those questions and then to find the intersection of all of those things. So for me, in my career, it was absolutely diversity, equity, inclusion. It showed up. The world needs it. I love doing it. People tell me I'm good at it. I can be paid for that. There's D&I positions out there. And then on the other side of that, for business stuff, so it works for both. Like, right, if you're exiting, you're like, what do I need to figure that out? Ikigai also works for you understanding what would be an aligned business for you. And so if you're able to assess that, listen, I throw it in ChatGPT. ChatGPT will help you out. If you're like, I can't do this, I don't know. ChatGPT, throw it in there. And then see what the intersection is. And I think that's a really great path to seeing something that we haven't seen before. A lot of times we don't feel comfortable giving ourselves permission to think bigger than what we've had in our careers or our businesses. And so that's a way for you to just say, hey, I'm just doing a brainstorming session. I'm just trying it out. Like, let's see what comes up, and just be open to it and then see what comes. And when I did that exercise, I tell my clients to do that. I didn't do myself. I found that it was diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then instead of closing myself off to like what my heart was telling me or my values, my dreams, I said, how can I be that person? How can I talk about my brand? How can I talk about my skills and all my experiences in a way that positions me for that opportunity? So as soon as I really took a step back to say, I'm not going to go through the motions, I'm really going to be intentional about what it is that I want, and I'm going to create a brand around it and a resume around it. That is the process, right? Understanding what it is you want to do, understanding what people need for that type of role, and then branding yourself, your resume, and applying, right? And it's not that easy. It's you're getting the quick piece, but it took a lot of reflection of saying, like, have I actually talked about equity? Have I evaluated a process to ensure that's inclusive, right? Have I created a program or a project that was, supporting diversity? Yeah, girl, like, get that resume together and apply. Okay. So that's really the process that I went through. And it took a couple months. I'm not saying it was fast, but.
Oh, wait, it only took a couple of months?
Oh, yeah. Well, because I'm a recruiter. I'm a recruiter, though.
Wow. That's fast.
It was a couple months of me not being aligned and not clear. And I mean, that was like 6 months where I was struggling. But in terms of when I finally said, wait a second, I'm going to shift this. Yeah. Was a lot faster. Now that wasn't this isn't a today job market. Today's job market is rough. I'm just putting it out there.
Right. Okay. Yeah. But you're talking about what the process was, even when you had to self-correct and say, wait a minute, I'm not even doing what I need to be doing. But you were able to pivot out. Now, because I wanted to ask you these questions. Right now, the questions I'm asking you are really addressing the barriers that some Black women might come up with pivoting out of a job. Fear, how to replace income, but you said that you were able to pivot within a couple of months. The next barrier that a lot of Black women talk about that I want to ask you about is, did you encounter people around you in your circle telling you to stay at that job?
Yeah, one thing about me, it's probably a product of how it is. I am a product of them, but I have some really just bold step out on faith Black women that I was raised by,
Wow.
So I think that's why I'm very unapologetic about, like, I'm pursuing the passion. I don't know what I'm doing with that psychology degree, but I said I'm doing it. I'm making it work. But like in the reality, right? Like I truly have amazing support structures around me, but I also am intentional about like my community, right? So yes, my family raised me to be, bold, go for my dreams. But I also have friends that were bold, go for your dreams. Okay. Fiance, bold, go for your dreams, right? And so it's like who we center ourselves around. But I think as Black women specifically, we're often told to be the everything to everybody else, but not to us. And I think it starts with saying, what would it look like for me to center myself? What would it look like to only think about what I want for just a little bit, to go through this exercise? And if you can center yourself and say, actually, this is what I want. People can come with me, they can get behind me, or they can, and I joke around. I'm very much about my peace. I will cut off a family member. What would that be for you? Like, let's be for real here. I'm a very loving person, but like, there's no reason to be in my way, right? It's like
Yeah.
I have a community that supports me, and I know that's hard to think about for some people, but I'm not just joking. Like, I really will be like, you're not this relationship, whatever it is, not conducive to me. So
Not
gotta go.
serving, right? And
Yeah.
it's it's you what you're saying is that you were brought up in an environment where again they focus on faith, they focus on be bold and audacious and all those things. And so that wasn't
Mhm.
instilled upon you that level of
Yeah.
fear that I think a lot of Black women
Mm-hmm.
struggled
Yep.
with. A lot of us grew up in that area of fear. Fear you
Mm-hmm.
stay and it's stable, but it's like you said, nothing's really stable, right? So that's
Nothing. Yeah.
important for us to understand as
Mhm.
Black women. I think this market now, what's happening now, is really showing us
It's
that
rough.
nothing really stable. And Mercedes,
Mhm.
what I appreciate you said is that the importance of knowing your circle and being around a circle of people who can support you. So can you share with us what does your life look what when did you leave that job and what does your life look like now professionally?
Yeah. So I quit so you talk about the fear, do it scared. I left my full-time job in December of last year. So my first day of full-time entrepreneurship or as a career love coach was January of this year. And so you said at the beginning, you're like, oh, you're just a bubble of energy. You're just excited, high energy. And it's like, that is truly how I aim to exist. I want to hop around, be happy, be excited, smile, bubbly, all of that. And so I think the challenge here is that being in an organization that doesn't support you, isn't inclusive, doesn't see you, will have you acting outside of your state, right? And I'm not saying everybody wants to be like have my energy or be where I'm saying whatever it is for you. And
Yeah.
so that's my base, right?
Okay.
I don't have anything right now that I can't shift or change in my dynamics of what's serving me or what's not serving me, right? I don't have to go sit in a meeting with somebody who yelled at me yesterday. I don't have to go sit in a meeting with somebody who we're talking about that orange man in a
Oof.
meeting casually yesterday. I don't have to do that. Respectfully, get off my phone. I'm
Right.
paying my own bills. Leave me alone.
Right.
And so that's, I think, the shift here, that true autonomy. You talk about the toxic job liberator, okay? That is so much freedom and offers so much peace. And I think that's the big thing of the freedom to yes or to no, right? Like if I want to go do a DEI workshop and I want to educate people who are rocking with the orange man, then I can do that, but it's my freedom to do it or not.
Right.
And that's what we're
And I
talking
was
about.
trying so hard to control my face. I couldn't. Every time you say the orange man, I always felt, right. Oh, yes, I hear
I
you.
know. So I
You're
should
really,
have said trigger warning. I'm sorry,
yeah,
but
for real. But you're really talking about finding ways that as Black women, we can protect our peace. And number two,
Mhm.
you're talking about ways that we can center ourselves without being selfish. I can't stand when people, Black women say, well, no, we're not being selfish. We're centering ourselves, and that's not being selfish.
Mhm.
The other
Mhm.
thing, and quoting Audre Lorde, self-preservation, right? So taking care of ourselves is not
Yep.
selfish. It's an act of self-preservation, which is political warfare, which ties into what
Mhm.
we're dealing with right now for us as
Yep.
Black people, Black women to be well despite everything going on. So Mercedes, can you share? Well, you know what? Before you share about your business, I want to ask you a follow-up question or something, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I talk about a lot on HR on my channel. I've had a
Mhm.
lot of guests talking about HR is not your friend, like a lot,
I
right?
know.
And I appreciate the degree to which we talk about it because I think many Black women go into
Mhm.
HR with an expectation of something that may happen and we get thrown off, right? That doesn't
Mhm.
happen. So what
Yeah.
advice can you give to Black women in relation to HR? Like if there's a problem going on in the workplace, or if they feel like there's some toxicity, hostile things going on, what advice for somebody who has worked in HR? What
Yeah.
advice do you give to Black women about HR and going to HR?
Yeah. That's hard. My Anytime I'm having a conversations about, workplace dynamic, toxic jobs, and kind of addressing the cycle or setting boundaries in the workplace, anything like that, my first question is always, there's a trend here about centering self. What is it that you want out of this situation? If you're going to human resources and you have an issue with your supervisor, is it that you want to be reassigned? Is it that you want somebody to have a conversation with your supervisor? Is it that you want to have a different process for interacting with your supervisor? Or like I've had some very specific things of like my supervisor always makes me come in on the weekend. They don't ask my other, whoever else. It's always me. I'm the only Black woman. It's always me. Well,
Mm,
then you have all of this angst and resentment and upset that's spanning all other areas, but it's this one area. I'm not saying it's right, but I'm saying like, is that what it is? Because then that's just a conversation that says, now if you have a toxic supervisor that doesn't want to interact and talk with you, then that means you could go to human resources and you're saying then you know what you want, so therefore you know the evidence that you need to provide to support that. So and so HR professional, I have an issue. I wasn't able to resolve this with my supervisor. I noticed that I'm the person. We always want to say notice, not feel. I
mm,
noticed, or this is what I'm seeing in behavior,
mhm,
that I'm always the person that's called in on Sundays, to
mm,
come into work. I
mm,
noticed that my other colleagues aren't doing this. I've been called in for the last 15 weeks or whatever, like whatever your evidence is, right?
mm,
And how can we resolve this? I would like it to be, I understand. I always say to kind of, they talk about the sandwich, right? Sandwiching in the positive and the positive intent. I'm always committed to working with this team to ensure that we meet our goals, our customers are served, whatever that is.
mhm,
But I do want to be able to share, right, Sunday shifts or call outs with my other colleagues, right? And
mm.
that's what you want. You get what you want. And
Yeah.
if that HR professional is fair, they'll have the conversations or they'll address that. A lot of times people get upset because they want this group meeting, and HR professionals are going to have anything that's a performance related thing or a mismanagement of something. And
Mhm,
especially if it's like discrimination, they're going to have that separate and then they're going to come back with the findings. And
mhm,
so don't get upset about that. I've seen the people do that. But right
mhm,
then you have a very leveled way of saying, what is it that I actually want to experience that's different than what I am right now? And
mhm,
when you provide the evidence to the HR professionals, they're better able to deal with that versus coming in and saying, I feel like my supervisor hates me. Well, why does your supervisor hate me? They just hate me. They don't treat me fair. Like, okay, but what is it? No, it's because you feel like they're bringing you into the office,
mhm.
when you should be there. That should be something that's shared. I'm just picking an example, but that could be anything, right? And I think if HR professionals, if we know how to interact with them on like a very tangible basis about what we need, then we're
Mm,
better able to have them, the outcomes serve us better, even if they don't really care. You know what I'm saying? Because like I have the evidence now, so you have to kind of address this. Yeah.
got it. So go in knowing what the intent is of why you're going to HR, state specifically what that is, what you've noticed, not what you feel, but what
Yep.
you noticed. Okay. A follow-up question to that is
Mm-hmm.
what about, because I'm hearing about this more and more and more. Okay.
Yeah.
What about if a Black woman is put on a performance improvement plan, a PIP?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What would you advise of her to do? Now, I did have a conversation with a Black woman attorney last week for
Yeah.
the public, and then we had one members live, and we got real deep into that. Okay, she's coming back
Yeah.
again to our members
That's
only live.
awesome.
If you want a PIP, you need to come to that
Mm-hmm.
conversation. Okay, so that's members
Yeah.
only. So, what would you advise for an HR if a Black woman is
Mm-hmm.
on the PIP?
Yeah. So having been the person to deliver the PIP, what often happens is that the employee's voice is missing from most of that process at the beginning, right? So a supervisor, also what I notice is that supervisors will wait until they're extremely frustrated and they don't know what else to do, and they will go and say, now I'm so upset, I'm running to HR, I want to fire this person. And if HR is doing their right thing, they're going to say, well, you can't just fire them. Why would you want to fire them? And then
Mhm,
HR spends all of this time trying to understand and unravel what happened and why the supervisor is this mad, but we haven't heard anything. And so then I'm spending all this time speaking with the supervisor. And then most of the time, that just ends up on the employee's desk, or not on their desk, but like a connection with them that says, hey, here are all of these performance related issues that we have. And that's why sometimes a PIP, whether or not it's good faith or a bad, that's what I call it. There's a good faith PIP when there's really performance challenges that somebody wants to help you address. And there are bad faith PIPs when they're trying to do things like push you out of the organization. It's discrimination based. They just don't want to deal with you. They're triggered, all of the above. Right. And so I've dealt with feedback. I haven't had a PIP for myself. Right. But I've had feedback that was related more to a trigger than it was actual performance. Right. Either way, the employee at that standpoint, whether they knew, didn't know, good faith, bad faith, unfortunately has the onus of providing the evidence that says that's so or not so. And so if I was in a place where I received a PIP from human resources and they said, hey, here are all the issues based on my experience. Now, some people might be like, I'm not signing a form. I'm not acknowledging any of this. Mm-hmm. If I thought it was untrue, I probably wouldn't acknowledge it. I'd probably say, hey, thank you for sharing this, this feedback with me. Mm-hmm. This is honestly a surprise. I thought we had, I was meeting expectations. I'd like to review this and like reconnect. Can we set another meeting on Monday to talk about this?
So don't sign it. You don't have to sign it. Don't sign it.
Now, some HR professionals, like I've had, I've had people be like, you have to sign they made me sign it. I'm not saying you're not going to have people that do that. If I was an HR professional, I'd say, yeah, let's reconnect on Monday. I know this might be a shock to you. Right.
Okay.
Now, like I said, I'm a person that's operating in good faith. I'm not some of those other HR professionals, right? Yeah. Either way, if you do have like a bad faith HR professional, you can still do the same thing. Thank you for bringing this to me. I want to review this. And if you've been having issues at all, right, you're probably going to have some documentation, right? Oh, my supervisor said I wasn't doing this for customers. Well, actually on this date, and this date, my supervisor asked me to do this. So how are they saying that I was doing that, right? I have emails or confirmations that I said I was doing this, or this is what we agreed upon. One of the things for me that I will always do is I have a running checklist. And for people who know me, y'all know everything's in Notion. I have the date when I entered the task. I have the deliverable. I have what my supervisor said about it. I have which check-in it happened. And it's not because I think something is going to go bad. I mean, I need that for my brain. So if somebody comes back to me and says, oh, you weren't doing this, this is what we said. I was like, no, I have all this documentation, all this writing that says this is what we agreed to. And here's the email and this is what happened and blah, blah, blah. So I have all of this evidence that says, hey, this isn't really what we agreed upon. And so a good HR professional will take that information at that point and listen to you and then go back and review that is, right? Yeah. And so in times where I've had negative feedback and I came back and I said, I heard you. I took the weekend to reflect on this, but I couldn't really understand where this feedback came from. You said this, I did this. You said this, I did this. In that situation, that feedback was rescinded. They took it back and it went way back up the chain, because at the end of the day, I'm going to set my boundary with like, this is my behavior, right? This is not aligned. And I know that feels really uncomfortable and scary to do, but if the feedback is not valid, there's no evidence of it, we do have to push back like that, because at the end of the day, it's going to be what protects our job. Now that happens, don't stay. I'm not telling you to stay. I'm not telling you to keep rocking with them. But
okay, good point. So elaborate on that too.
Yeah. I mean, like, because if it's what I call a bad faith PIP, like they're really trying to push you out. They're just looking for another reason then, even though you push back on that, right? So again, exit, right? Start your job search. If it's a good faith PIP, your faith with your trust with that person is not going to go back. It doesn't matter, right? Like you don't trust them. This was a surprise. There could have been other things that you could have done to resolve this. And so even if the thing is, okay, I got through this PIP, I did it, like I still recommend to leave, because nobody wants to deal with the dynamic of saying, oh, I'm an underperformer, I could be an underperformer again. And then that puts you in more precarious situations, because they're like, oh, well, this happened again. We already put you through a PIP. We're just letting you go now. And that's unstable for you. Just get out of there. There's no, whether it's good or bad, just get out of there. There's no PIP that I want to live through again.
Good point. So more than likely, if you go on a PIP, and I love what Dr. Oates said. Dr. Oates, one of our channel members, and she said, I've been on both sides. By the time I'm at PIP, I want you
Mm-hmm.
gone. So as a
Yep.
manager, by the time she gets to that point, right, it's basically a done deal. And what I
Yep.
hear you say too is if you're ever put on the PIP, that's a really bad sign.
Yep.
So if you stay there, more than likely other things are going to happen. And really the importance of starting to exit plan is
Yep.
very, very, very important. So I appreciate
Mm-hmm.
what you shared. And I also want to just add what the attorney said. Check out that video too. She was like,
Yeah.
you need to consult an attorney. Okay. Even
Mm-hmm.
before you go to HR, consult an attorney. So be proactive. Go watch that video
Mm-hmm.
for real because she said some really good information. And
That's
if you want
good.
to get more information, like behind the scenes about the legal aspect of it, you need to become a
Mm-hmm.
member so that when she comes back, she's coming back. We're going to have two more follow up with the attorney. She's a labor
Nice.
and employment attorney. So check it out. Become a member so you can come to those lives, member only lives. And I see another comment. Yeah, a person may be good, HR professional, and see the injustice, but still support the company. That's sad. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
one of the other
Yeah.
chapter members said that. Yes, very true, very
Yep.
true. So, can
Mm-hmm.
you share about what is the business that you do now? How are you a career love
Yeah.
coach? What is a career love coach? You
I
help other Black women.
Yeah, I think that is that. I mean, it is that, right? Like falling in love with your career. When we talk about the experiences, the pips, the toxic supervisors, the manipulation, the poor cultures, the yelling, whatever we want to, the crying in the office, whatever we want to call it, it leads us to this idea that, it's not really possible for us to love what we do. It's not possible to show up and be happy at work. And I find that for us, it means that we're not going to take the action, right? Oh, I'll just stay here after this PIP or after this, issue that I have with my supervisor because I don't think I'm going to experience anything different out
Mm,
there. So I'm not going to look for it. Or I don't believe that, I have the skills necessary to make that pivot or make that shift. So I'm just going to stay here.
mm,
It locks yourself out of the potential of believing something better could be true.
right.
And so my part of career love is just opening it up for possibility, right? And I think some of that is, yes, saying, okay, I'm going to pivot into this dream job, the job that I love. I'm
Mhm.
clear about what the experience that I want is, right? Like, okay, if I had a terrible supervisor then, I have a supportive supervisor now. What is the experience and how do we find the shifts and the changes? And how do we find what our quote unquote career love era would be? And so that's the foundation of my coaching business. And so I do tactical things like helping you with your resume and branding and interviewing, but I do it in a way that centers like your desires and centers how you want to experience the world and really what career love would look like, not settling, not being okay, not going through the motions, really reconsidering what it would look like for you. And so, yeah, that's what I do. I provide coaching services. I have a career love community with like minded Black women who are working on their career. But
Okay.
I've recently expanded into business coaching because
Okay.
I recognize, like me, I want to love what I do, but I also want to be in a sense of having freedom later on. So I'm not really trapped in that job, and I'm thinking about what is most aligned for me. Is it a career? Is it business? And how do I consider both of those to really create this life that I want, which is Black woman bliss. So that's kind of how I structure my coaching and kind of, I don't want to say it's as serious as like a methodology, but really my thought process behind how we create intentionally the life that we want by having an aligned career in business. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's me.
I love it. Okay, and I heard you say that you also have a community. So when I think about
Yeah.
community, like my YouTube, it's like a community, and then I have a
Mhm.
separate membership community in
Yeah.
YouTube, the butterfly community, because what I
Oh,
find is as Black people, as Black women, because the community is for Black women, it's a we need community because that's how we
mhm.
heal. Can you talk a
Yeah.
little bit more about your community and who is it for?
Yeah. So my community is for Black women. I most connect with Black women who want a passion driven career. So I recognize that there are Black women out there that are like, hey, I need to pivot into tech because, I want the tech, bank account. I want the tech lifestyle. But I'm like, my thing is like, okay, but is the tech, like, do you love tech? Like, is there some excitement? Is there some passion, some drive in there? And so that's really what I want to create a community around women who are just passionate about what they do, and they want to do it in a way that allows them to, have legacy work, right? Really be passionate about what they do and impact wise. And so a lot of the individuals in my community are what I would call passion driven, right? So they're in things like healthcare, human resources, nonprofits, education, social justice, like all of those types of fields and careers are made up in the Black women community. I have a range, individuals who are like in director level roles, officer level roles, or more entry level. So I think it's really this place. And I think really where people find me is because they don't want to experience a toxic job anymore. They want to create and understand how to break that. And they, again, to your point, community is healing. And so I love that people and Black women in my community find it to be a safe space. They know they're not going to attend a session and be triggered today. They know they're going to attend a session and feel warm and included and loved. And I think that's, to your point of having that closed space for conversation, that's so important, because we do need that safety to speak transparently about what we're dealing with and find a way to deal with it and experience something more positive. So that's a little bit about my community.
I love it. I love healing your community. I love to hear about other resources that we as Black women have for other Black women, because there are not enough of us doing the healing work. And so we need to be able to have these spaces that are open for us, because there's so much in the environment that's trying to attack us and all that kind of stuff. We need those safe spaces, and to also hear from other Black women, learn from other Black women, support from other Black women. It takes it on a whole nother level. You know what I'm saying? Like when you connect to another Black woman or Black women, it just takes it to a whole nother level. So I love the work that you're doing. How can people find out about you? How can they find out about your work, your website? I know I have it in the description section, but just tell us anyway.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah. So if you Google my name, Mercedes Swan, or the Career Love Coach, sometimes I'm having a good day and I'll come up with career coach for Black women. But you can find me on any platforms. For me, I am primarily on LinkedIn, TikTok, and YouTube. Those are my primary platforms. I've said goodbye to Meta platforms. So I'm there, but I'm not active. And so there's two ways to kind of work with me. If you're, somebody who wants to enter your Black Woman Bliss era coaching, you can schedule a clarity chat. Those are available on all forms of socials that you'll find me. And then my community it's always open. It's an evergreen. So you can join that by heading to my website if that's an interest. But yeah, my DMs are always open. Reach out, connect, say hello. Because I can't see you all, but I'm here.
Okay. Last question before I read the community chat. So if there's a Black woman watching this discussion right now, and first of all, let me say thank you so much for your transparency throughout this conversation. Thank you for your flexibility, because I told you I had the questions written. I'm like, no, I come up with other questions along the way. So I appreciate that. And so thank you. So can you just share, if there's a Black woman who's watching this conversation right now, and she might be watching a Sunday live today, and she's experiencing the Sunday scaries, because she got to go to work Monday, but she can resonate with what we talked about today. What words of wisdom could you share with her?
The desire that you have and the desire for an experience that you want is inevitable. That's how I show up and see the world, right? If I want to have a career where I show up and I'm happy every day and I love what I do, I believe that that's inevitable, and I pursue it and chase it as though it is. And I feel like a lot of times in this market, and sorry, I'm a little bit more long-winded, but I feel like a lot of times in this market, we really look at all of these external reasons that says like we can't go for what we want and it's not possible. But if we shifted our mindset to feel like, hey, this is inevitable, I'm going to find a way, I'm going to do this, I'm going to solution my way through this. We problem solve as Black women for everybody else, but I want us to problem solve for ourselves. So I think that's always my piece of guidance. Just keep going and, believe that it's going to happen, and it will.
It will. And I see my friend Marissa is here, my co-host of the summit. So she said, Black woman bliss. Yes. So can you share the part 2, Mercedes? And this is something that makes me so sad, is that I've come across a number of Black women who don't feel like they're able to access bliss or joy or happiness. And That's very sad for me because they've been so
Mm.
beaten down by life and fed the
Yeah.
lie that as Black people, as Black women, that
Mm.
we're like joy or bliss is something that's not accessible to us. Like, don't think about
Yeah.
that because we got bills to pay and that kind of thing. So can you speak to that directly? And I promise we're gonna read the community chat after that. Can you speak to
Oh
that
my gosh, you're fine.
notion of
Um,
that?
I'm sorry, say that last part again. It cut out a little bit for
The
me.
idea that as Black people, as Black women, that we don't deserve bliss or we don't deserve joy, we don't
Mhm.
deserve happiness. Can you speak to why it's so important for us to have bliss and joy and happiness?
Yeah, I think it's connected. And I will always mess up a quote, but right, it's like the idea that like liberation and freedom and joy is the resistance that we have in this space. And
True.
I truly believe that. And I truly believe that when we're most aligned with what it is that we desire, like other things they'll come into place for us, and kind of that idea of like our gifts will make space for us. What it
True.
is that we've been called to do will make space for us. And I think if we were to more lean heavily into that and believe that all things are coming out and coming to for our greatness and for what we've been called to do, that
Yeah.
I think we'll find more bliss and joy in that because it's what
Yeah.
we're truly doing. But also to not believe that there would ever be somebody that was called to do something and that would not be able to accomplish it. And so I say all of that to say, like, yeah, bliss is in the little moments for me. Like, so if you're a Black woman that feels like it's not possible, bliss for me right now is like just as simple as going outside with my cup of coffee in the morning
Good
and
point.
centering the little moment. And
Good
so if
point.
you can normalize that bliss is your existence in little ways, I think you can expand it to other ways and bring that into alignment as well. And
Mhm.
Black Woman Bliss started off as a persona for me that I was chasing, right? To say, what would it be like to truly live in my Black Woman Bliss era? What would I do? What would I say? And that allowed me to come out of myself and say, what would be this, highest version of myself, and what would I do, right? And yeah, right now that's coffee outside in the mornings and enjoying
Yeah.
it.
And I think, like you said, it's a form of resistance. Our wellness and our joy and our bliss forms of resistance because, again, we're living a time
Mm,
where it's so much chaos and confusion all around us that
yeah,
we're like terrified. Like many of us are like terrified, like what's happening now? Oh my God. So the exhaustion of that. But the
yeah,
way that we will survive and thrive out of this is to stay centered, like stay informed about what's happening, but you're not
hmm
going to steal my joy. You're not going to steal my bliss. You're not going to do any of that. And to recognize my earrings, I have the Sankofa bird on today. And it's
oh,
just that we know that by looking to the past, that shares that we know we're informed by the past. So we don't repeat the mistakes of the past, how we're informed by the past, but also how can we use what was done in the past to help us survive as Black people? It's so important.
hmm
Ways that we've been able to pivot and operate an underground railroad and all those things, we will do it, right? Because we know as Black
hmm
people, as Black women, how to make a way out of a no way. But the importance not to get swept away with all the chaos and confusion. So important, so
yeah,
important. So let me read the
hmm
community chat. I had to get a restraining order on my supervisor due to threats. Oh, after
oh,
numerous complaints, upper management wouldn't help. I have a continuance so I could hire an attorney. Oh my
oh
sis,
yeah, that's immediately attorney. Yeah,
that is
that's not
absolutely horrible. That is
no.
absolutely horrible. I'm so sorry that that is happening to you. So sorry
Oh,
about that. And
mm-mm.
I'm sorry I had to get to that point. I'm sorry, but I'm also happy that you are getting an attorney involved in this, okay?
Mhm.
So important.
Yes.
People are saying
Yes.
hello. It took me quite some time to realize that those toxic individuals were intimidated by me because they aim to tear down or scrutinize everything I included, showing them everything I included, showing them empathy. Okay, so
Mhm.
they aimed her down, scrutinized everything you did, including showing them empathy. I think she's saying, I think you're also saying, sis, is that you showed them empathy. I think that's what you're saying. I think that's correct, right? So I hear you. I always have the perspective. I don't know if you agree with this, sis. And this is going to be me sharing my perspective, right? I don't know if you agree with it. Like for me, I'm able to see people like what they're bringing to the table and why they are doing a certain way, right? So I have an
Mhm.
understanding of the why. I have a hard time with empathy for people who intentionally do things. I have a hard time with that.
Mhm.
But, we're all, our own people. We make our own choices. Just be mindful of recognize these people, right? Dr. Maya Angelou, when they show you who they are the first time, believe them, okay? Hello, sisters,
Mhm.
I'm late. I have to catch up. Thank you for joining at all. So make sure you watch the replay, okay? I also had to let go of the thought of accepting that someone was intimidated by me without believing I was being arrogant. I believe that's a
Mhm.
way we gaslight ourselves. That is such a good point. That is such a good point. I might do a
Yeah.
reaction video to that. That is so good
Yeah.
because we have been brought up as Black women that we are not to be big headed, that we need to be
Mhm.
humble, that we have to do all these things. And I think as Black people, what has happened is that many times we're very trusting of others and we try to give people the benefit of the doubt. We have to be
Mhm.
mindful of that. But that is such a good point. Thank you for sharing that. The stability must
Mhm.
come from within yourself. Such an important lesson. Thank you. Thank you, Giovanna. And in fact,
Mhm.
Giovanna is one of our summit speakers. So
Aw.
thank you for joining in, Giovanna. I appreciate you. Okay. So let's see Dr. O's comments. And I see one of our other members said, great conversation. Hey, Danielle. Hello, everyone. Okay, that's so exciting. The idea of helping women pinpoint what they really want so they can be intentional about their careers and business. Love it. Good. Yes. I'm a 71-year-old retiree concerned about the status of my Social Security benefits and just want to say how proud I am
Aw.
of you, young women. Oh, thank you, sis. I appreciate you saying that. Someone saying hey to you, Marissa, in the chat. Let's see. One of my other members, community members from the YouTube Butterfly Community for Black Women, I had a hard time with empathy for those who hurt others too, but not anymore. I just can't have
Mhm.
empathy for them. I'm sorry. I get it. I completely get it.
Yeah.
Yes, upper belief limits that we get as children and carry into adulthood. Yes. So we
Mhm.
have to be mindful of why do I feel the way? Why do people are treating me shady? They're doing these things to me. Why do I feel the need to respond in that way? It's really important to interrogate where does that come from? And is it
Mhm.
serving you? Is it serving you? Okay. Some of the things we've been taught as kids, some of this has benefited us, some of it has not. So we have to be mindful of
Mhm.
that. Okay. So everyone, thank you so much for watching. I got a few things I want to say to you, everybody. Okay. So again, the virtual summit for Black women, the Job Liberation Virtual Summit for Black women. I'm so excited. This is the second annual Job Liberation Virtual Summit that I'm co-hosting with Marissa Price. So sales tomorrow, early registration. Okay, so get ready. So if you click the link that's going across the screen or in the description section, you will be notified as soon as the tickets go on sale. Okay, so that's the one thing. The second thing I want to tell you is I've made comments to different things I'm having for members only for my membership community. So it's a Butterfly YouTube membership community for Black women. If you want to be a part of that community, I talked about we're going to be more behind the scenes with that labor and employment attorney. Okay. So if you want to be a part of that community and know about Q&A and real deal conversations, join the community. Marissa and I are going to come on live tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central. Am I getting right? Yeah, 6 p.m. Pacific to do like a Q&A about the virtual summit. So if you're interested in coming, you can have all your questions answered during that live tomorrow. Okay. So Mercedes, I'm going to give you the last word and then we're going to wind down for today.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I think I said everything. I really did. It was so this chat was lovely. And so thank you for, the opportunity to connect and learn more about your audience and just, yeah, share my story. I always love it because I think no matter what it is, we could learn from the stories of others. And there's a lot of alignment between my experiences and those of some of you in the chat. So thank you so much for spending this time with me. It was great. Thank you.
Yes. Well, I appreciate you. And I see Giovanna's comment. I love that. What you focus on grows. Yes. And Giovanna's going to be sharing more of these gems with us during the virtual summits. You need to come. Okay. So thank you, Giovanna. I see another comment came in. Sometimes it's the employee's insecurities. You may be more qualified for the job than them. They dislike it. Girl, that is so true. I think I've done conversations about that before, but I'm going to do another conversation about that because my dear friend Colette Elizabeth, I love this comment she said. She said, you have to be mindful in the workplace of 3 qualities. Look out for these 3 qualities. Supervisors or bosses who are insecure, immature, and incompetent. I'm telling you, that's like the triad. You got to watch out for that. I'm telling you, from my own personal experiences, from Black women I've worked with, you need to be mindful of that, okay? So everyone, facts, yes. So be mindful of that. Those things, I'm telling you the truth, okay? Be mindful of those things. And again, I want to say to this community that I thank you for being honest with me about things that are not working for you, because I want this community to be for all of us. And if I'm doing something that you feel like, girl, can you please stop that? Or girl, can you just let me know? I love constructive feedback, and I will do whatever I can to improve as much as I can, because I want this community to be open and supportive for all of us. Okay. I want to say again to Mercedes, thank you so much for being my guest. I connected to Mercedes on LinkedIn. Okay. So that just shows you the power of community through social media. Connected to Mercedes on social media, and we made this happen. So thank you again, Mercedes. And also, as we're winding down, everyone, please give this video a thumbs up. It will let YouTube know with the algorithm to suggest this video to other Black women who might be in similar situations. If you have not already joined the Butterfly YouTube membership community for Black women, you need to join, because again, I already got people lined up to come talk to us members live. So you need to come. We also have monthly sisterhood check-in meetings. So come in. Again, you click where it says join, or in the description section of this video, you will see another comment just came in. I had double their years of experience and triple their education, and only 2 years older than them. But we had different life experiences, and they were comparing themselves to me. Yes, I recognize their insecurities, but it starts coming out because they can't really hold it in, right? It starts coming out. The insecurities start coming out. And again, I think many times it's Black people, Black women, that we're like, okay, let's, I just want us to work together. I want the best for, I want us to work together. I want they're not thinking that way. They really do not care about the benefit of their organization. They're thinking about themselves and their ego. And so I think as Black people, as Black women, that we need to be mindful of that. Okay. Last comment. Absolutely. And there's no comparison. Yes. Okay. So again, give this video a thumbs up. Join the Butterfly YouTube membership community for Black women. I've seen some of the members here today. Also, if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please do so. All of Mercedes' information is in the description section. Check out her YouTube channel. I'll put that in the description section. Subscribe to her channel, subscribe to my channel. And guess what? It's free. It is absolutely free to subscribe to YouTube. No fee, no fee. Now it's a fee to join my community, but it's no fee to subscribe to our channels. Okay. Stay informed and connect to the bliss, the joy in our lives. Okay. So everyone, I will see you tomorrow when I'm on with Marissa Q&A about the Job Liberation Virtual Summit for Black women. Tickets go on sale tomorrow. Again, if you click the link, you will be notified when tickets drop. And I will see you guys tomorrow during the Q&A. And I'll say comment. Thanks, Dr. Kamani and Miss Mercedes. You are welcome.
You're welcome.
Everyone. I'll see you all later. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.